Hello everyone, this is Romaric from Value Insight, and in this video I have prepared for you 10 Scrum Master exam practice questions. All of those questions are based on the Scrum Guide and they are suitable for exams such as Certified Scrum Master, Professional Scrum Master 1, or Registered Scrum Master. Let's get right into it. So our first question is, how many events are present in the Scrum framework? A, 3, B, 4, C, 5, or D, 6? You can pause and think, and let's have a look at the answer. So our answer here is C. C, which means basically 5 events. So what are the events that we have actually in Scrum? So we will all think about the 4 formal events, which are the sprint planning, the daily Scrum, the sprint retrospective, and the sprint review. But we also have as well the container event, which is the sprint. So that's why actually there are 5 events in Scrum and not 4 as one may originally think. Okay, let's have a look at the second question. How many product owners can there be in a Scrum team? So A, there is no need for a dedicated product owner. B, there can be only one product owner in a Scrum team. C, one product owner should be in for every 9 developers. Or D, as many as a Scrum team decides. And here is our answer. Answer is B. So B, there can be only one product owner in a Scrum team. This is straight from the Scrum Guide. There can only be one product owner. Okay, let's get to look the third question. Who is accountable for the Scrum team's effectiveness? A, the product owner, B, the developers, C, the Scrum Master, or D, the Scrum team itself. So our answer here is C. So C for the Scrum Master. So why do we have actually a Scrum Master in a Scrum team? It's mostly to drive the Scrum team's effectiveness. And that's why actually the Scrum Master is accountable for it. Scrum Master acts like a coach basically for the developers and the product owner. And he is here or she is there actually to make sure that the Scrum team is as effective as possible. So if you have a bad Scrum team, a team which is not performing, look for the Scrum Master. If you have a product which is of low value, then have a look at the product owner, because the product owner is here to drive or maximize actually the values delivered by the Scrum team. But in terms of Scrum team effectiveness overall, this is on the Scrum Master. Okay, let's have a look at our next question. And here is question number 4. Which of the Scrum event is for the developers? A, the sprint planning, B, the daily Scrum, C, the sprint review, or D, the sprint retrospective? And our answer is B, the daily Scrum. So if we look at the Scrum Guide, there are 4 formal events: the sprint planning, the daily Scrum, the sprint review, and the sprint retrospective. All of those events are for the Scrum team to join, besides the daily Scrum, which is actually meant for the developers. So the goal of the daily Scrum is for the developer to check how far they are from the sprint goal and how to collaborate and organize their work during the day in order to be closer to that goal or to reach that goal. The product owner or the Scrum Master can join the daily Scrum, especially if they are working as developers. But if they are not working as developers, the product owner and the Scrum Master do not have to be there. Next one, who creates the definition of done if it doesn't exist? A, the product owner, B, the developers, C, the Scrum Master, or D, the Scrum team itself. And our answer is D. So what the Scrum Guide says about definition of done is that if a definition of done exists in an organization, then the Scrum team will actually take the definition of done from the organization, and at least at a minimum, and then they can improve, over it. But in case the definition of done doesn't exist, then the Scrum team will actually, create that definition of done. And so we do not want only to have the developers or the product owner or the Scrum Master to decide on definition of done. There's actually a common exercise because you want to bring, different perspective in the creation of the definition of done. That we have a shared understanding between all the members of the Scrum team of what done means. Okay, next question. Who is responsible to size the product backlog items? So A, the product owner, B, the developers, C, the Scrum Master, or D, the Scrum team itself. And our answer is B. So B as the developers. So very often people will think that the product owner may be responsible for the sizing or that this can be the Scrum Master, but actually no, what the Scrum guys tell us is that the people who are doing the job, so the developers are actually responsible to size the product backlog item. That's also how you get accountability from the developers themselves. Right? So the people who do the work knows best and therefore they are responsible for the sizing. Let's have a look at the next question. So who creates the work plan necessary to create an increment? A, the product owner, B, the developers, C, the Scrum Master, or D, the Scrum team itself. Okay, so our answer here is B. Maybe we have to give a little bit of context, as very often people will think, hey, plan, this should be on the product owner, but here we talk about an increment. When is an increment created? An increment is created during a sprint. And an increment is being created once you have a backlog item, so a sprint backlog item, which is actually turned, which meets the definition of done, and therefore an increment is created. Who is actually doing the work to turn those backlog items into increment? Those are the developers. And therefore, who creates the work plan in order to convert those items into an increment? And the people who do that are actually the developers. So this is most of the time, this is done during the sprint planning. Right? This is on sprint planning topic number 3. Create the work plan in order to turn backlog items into an increment. And that's on the developers. Next question. Who defines the sprint goal? A, the product owner, B, the developers, C, the Scrum Master, or D, the Scrum team itself. And our answer here is D. So that may surprise, some people, because often we say, okay, the sprint goal is actually defined by the product owner. Certainly, the product owner will actually give a directions to the developers and kind of negotiate with them which product backlog item should be part of the sprint. But again, that's a negotiation. There is a discussion between the product owners, the developers, and this is also facilitated with the Scrum Master presence. But the idea is that the sprint goal is actually defined, collectively. This is also again straight out of the Scrum guide, and therefore, the correct answer is the Scrum team itself. The Scrum team actually collaborates to define the sprint goal. Next question: who can cancel a sprint? A, the product owner, B, the developers, C, the Scrum Master, or D, the Scrum team itself. And the answer here is A. So A is actually the product owner. So again, this is something which is straight out of the Scrum guide. There is only one person and one person only who can cancel a sprint, and that is the product owner. Next question. When should a new sprint be started? A, as soon as an increment is done. B, when the product owner decides so. C, as soon as the time box of the previous sprint expires. Or D, every month. So our answer here is C. Let's have a look again at the possible answer. So as soon as an increment is done, not necessarily. You can have actually, multiple increments which are created during a sprint, and therefore your sprint will not stop when an increment is created. When the product owner decides so, again, in the definition of Scrum, what it tells you is that you move from one sprint to another. So as soon as the time box of a sprint expire, you move on to the new sprint. And therefore, the correct answer is C, as soon as the time box of the previous sprint expires. And that was it for this video. So you have had, 10 Scrum Master questions. We do hope that those questions will help you in passing your exam. And if you are looking for clarification, question, or comment, do not hesitate to get in touch with us, either via info@valueinsight.ch, or you can also as well go into our website and place some questions in the forums, or use our contact form. And you can also find as well additional, Scrum Master mock exam resources. So thank you for staying with me till the end, and I look forward to talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Value Insights. Agile by vision. Trainers by passion.